If you're considering upsizing from your current property into something bigger, in this video, we will discuss the most important steps to go through to make this move as seamlessly as possible. I'm Ouzas. I'm a realtor here in the city of Toronto. If you ever wanted to discuss the current market of where your current property is and where you're looking to make a move to, you can click on that first link in the description down below. The conversation about upsizing your property in the city of Toronto has been going on for all of time, especially as properties in the city aren't exactly as big as some of the areas in the outskirts. As an example, if you're currently in a condo looking to make a jump into a semi-detached or freehold property, it's important to consider some of these factors, especially to make everything work seamlessly. I've broken this down into 5 topics that you need to consider, and we've had a couple key steps along the way. Let's start here at knowing your numbers. That's number 1 on the list. So what is exactly knowing your numbers? Well, if you currently have a mortgage and you need to make a move, there are a couple factors when it comes to that mortgage. First of all is, what is the mortgage balance remaining? Once you know the mortgage balance remaining and you get a true market value of where your property currently sits at, you'll know what that difference looks like on if you need that money for the down payment and to close on the next property. You also want to find out if there's a mortgage penalty when it comes to breaking your mortgage. So for example, if you have a 5-year fixed mortgage and you're on year number 3, are you able to port the mortgage and not pay a penalty? Or what does that penalty look like, especially when it comes to breaking down the costs for making the move? I'd also recommend getting pre-approved. So if you are going through the process of figuring out how much mortgage is remaining and what kind of penalties, if any, are involved, maybe worthwhile to also get pre-approved so that you know exactly when it comes to shopping what you can afford on the other end. Next up, you'll also want to consider your costs to sell and your cost to buy. Also, when you break down these numbers, this will be a really good time to assess on whether or not you can actually stay where you are and make some renovations on your current property. If you're in a condo, it might be a little bit difficult to add a second or third bedroom or an extra bathroom. But if you are in a current house and you have the potential to add some elements that you might feel like you're missing, maybe the cost to just make that addition might be less than actually moving. When you factor in all the moving costs together, knowing those numbers on both sides will be super important on your consideration of making the move. Next up, I've added search. And the reason I put this as number 2 is because I do think it's important to figure out the location of where you're considering moving to. So if you're in a certain area of the city, do you want to stay in that area or do you want to move to something else? The space and size that you'll actually need. In the city of Toronto, space does come at a premium, especially when it comes to semi-detached or detached properties, if that's what you're looking for. Townhouses are a mix of stacked or freeholds, so knowing what kind of space and size of a property you need will be super important. The needs versus wants list, so anything that you would need. So for example, if you're in a 1-bedroom property and definitely need 2 or maybe even 3, or if, for example, you want a really nice pool or something in the backyard, that could be another example of a want versus what you actually need. So really writing it all down and having a clear picture of a needs versus wants list definitely makes a difference when it comes time to your search and what kind of properties are on the market that will fit that list. Number 3, we have buy versus sell first. And this is where the experience of a realtor can come into play on what exactly is going on in the market that you need to sell in versus the market that you're looking to purchase in. Knowing what's happening in certain micro markets and micro pockets, also what's happening with certain property types, definitely plays a factor when it comes to strategy in any market. This question of, do you need the proceeds from the sale to close the purchase? And by closing the purchase, what we're referring to is if the closing date comes up, do you have the money to actually close on the next property you're looking to purchase? That's where the question becomes, do you sell first and have that money readily available for when you're looking to purchase? And another question that would come up with that is, if you sell and you haven't found a place to move into just yet, do you have a place to stay in the interim? There are other options in the city of Toronto, like short-term rentals that are fully furnished. Those do come into play, but you would have to move possibly twice in order to make that move. The next question is, do you buy first? And if you do buy first and that property comes up for closing, as just mentioned, do you have the funds available that you can close on the property? Keep in mind that if you are looking to upsize, for most people, that may be over the $1 million mark in the city of Toronto if you are looking for more space. For example, if you're going from a condo into a semi-detached property, and if you are over the $1 million mark, then you will require 20% down on the purchase. So the question becomes, do you have that 20% down plus any close costs, land transfer taxes, any of those fees that will be due? And will the mortgage company be okay with you closing without having sold your property? These are all questions that you need to unpack before making a decision on whether you buy or sell first. These are factors that you definitely have to unpack, go through to make sure that you know exactly where everything stands. The other thing I would add to that is knowing what your property value is worth before buying is incredibly important. And these are conversations that you actually need to think about, especially when it comes to buying versus selling first. Knowing all these numbers and knowing all the scenarios will definitely help keep the stress levels a little bit lower if that's the case. Number 4 on the list, get show ready. This is an interesting one because it's something when I bring up, not a lot of people I feel are ready for, but I do believe that when you are in the process of buying and selling and considering to do both, you will want to do both in the same market. That being said, getting your property show ready, whether or not you buy or sell first, is ultra important. Preparing the current property from a standpoint of decluttering, doing any paint repairs or minor upgrades that are needed to make the property look good. Time and time again, this comes up and it does take longer than expected. So the sooner you start getting your property ready to go to market, the better off you'll be if you need to click that switch at a short notice. For example, if that house that you really love comes up on the market and you're able to buy it and snap it up right away, is the property you're currently ready to sell ready to go to market, or do you need to wait another month or two just to get it lined up to get ready? One thing that we do know in the city of Toronto is properties that look really well and show really well typically sell for more money across the board. So it's super important to make your property stand out, and getting it show ready from the get-go will certainly help when it comes to selling and also getting it up on the market as soon as possible. The last piece I'll add is if you do have a property that has great outdoor space, maybe a nice terrace, anything like that, you will want to get those photos done in the summer, even if you don't plan on listing until the spring. Summer photos always show better, and if you are trying to get photos of your property in the spring, when you just had 2 feet of snow land on your rooftop patio, that will definitely make a difference on how the property shows in photos and online. The last key I'll mention is number 5, and that's being in the market. So whether or not you're looking to buy or sell today, I do believe being in the market is an extremely important factor, especially when it comes to starting your search. Knowing the location, knowing the price and property type and what your budget can get you is ultra important. You can follow along sale prices on the listed app link down below. You can just sign up and get access to MLS, and you'll see when those properties sell and what they sell for. And this is the other thing to consider, is that if you haven't purchased a property in 5 or 10 years, things may be performing differently on the market now than they were at that time. I'd recommend keeping tabs on the ones that you're interested in, what they're listed at and what they're selling for, because sometimes those two numbers could be drastically different. Being in the market will teach you about the market and give you the insights needed, especially when it comes time to making your purchase. Those are my top 5 tips on upsizing in the Toronto market. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below on if there's anything you would add, especially if you do have the experience on making that upsize. And these are relative tips for even tenants getting into the purchase side for the first time, because knowing your numbers is super important, and then starting the search and being in the market also super important. If you ever wanted to book in a call to discuss how this could work for you and your property on making that upsize, you can click on that first link in the description down below. I'm Ouzas. Thanks for watching.